Hey guys, so today I'm filming my study tips for passing the OIIQ exam. So if this is your first time watching my videos, my name is Sarah and I am a postpartum registered nurse here in Montreal. I did my licensing exam in September 2020 and I found out about my results in October, so now I'm officially a registered nurse. And today I thought I'll show you guys how I studied for my licensing exam, and I'll give you guys a few of my study tips that I used to prepare for the exam. I forgot to mention that I also asked my friends to share their study tips on how they passed their licensing exam. So I will be including that at the end of the video. So as I mentioned in my previous video, I mainly used the RN 101 review course. So it came with study guides about the body systems and a lot of practice questions, which is really helpful. So how I studied is that I wrote down all the information in a notebook because that's how I retain most of the information. And then I just read through all the information that I just wrote down, and after that I would do the practice questions at the end. So here, for example, I wrote down the diagnoses and then all the information that I needed. So if I'm still confused about a diagnosis or anything, I use my Saunders book over here. That's just a good reference for all the diagnoses. It also has practice questions, but I wouldn't rely on those because the OIIQ test is different from the NCLEX. Okay, so my first tip is to plan your studying. You can either use your calendar on your laptop or your agenda. For me, I printed a copy of the August and September month. So here's an example of how I did it. So here is the August month and here is the September month. I think this is helpful because during that time I was working and I started school in September. So basically how I did it is I wrote down all of the diagnoses that I need to go through here, and then also the days that I'm working. As you can see at the end, I was mainly just doing practice questions. And then on the 19th of September, I did my OIIQ exam. Also wrote down a few affirmations here, just to motivate myself to study. My second tip is to figure out your learning style. I think by now you should know what study style works for you. So some people, they are visual learners, so they like watching videos, looking at diagrams. Some people prefer typing or writing down notes like me. This way you'll know what proper tools to use when you are studying. So my third tip is to focus on the common diagnoses. So I encourage you to look back to your clinical notes and see what comes up a lot. So be familiar with these diagnoses such as COPD, MI, or diabetes. I wouldn't go in depth with the pathophysiology though, just make sure that you know what interventions or assessments you need with these diagnoses. My fourth tip is to do a lot of practice questions. I cannot emphasize this enough. Please do practice questions because the exam is all multiple choice if they didn't change it yet, but I'm pretty sure it's still going to be multiple choice. So how I would go about it is you do all your notes, so either you do per diagnosis or per body system, then after those you do practice questions after. That way you'll know if you're actually learning the material or you're just memorizing stuff. Okay, so my fifth and last tip is to take breaks and relax, especially the day before the exam. There's no point in cramming before the exam. You're just gonna stress yourself out, and we don't want that. Okay, so please take a break so you can relax by just watching a movie or taking a long bath. Spending time with your family. I know when we're studying, we don't really get a lot of time with our families or friends. So make sure you have a good night's sleep before the exam. The brain works best when it's rested. Okay, that's it for my study tips. So if you have any more questions, feel free to message me. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys my friend's study tips.
Okay, so my tip for passing the OIIQ is using the PRN. So it's basically put together by the OIIQ itself. So you have like all they divide in like different components. You have cardiovascular, you have pulmonary system, the GI system. There's one section on pain and neurological. And then the last one is just like random stuff. Mm-hmm. And it really helps because they put out all the assessments you have to do. And then they also put the interventions and then give you rationales for the interventions. So you know like why you're doing this. And it's put in a way that like it's the same way the OIIQ wants you to answer the question. So when you get to the exam, you really like know what answer they want you to put. So that really helps me a lot. Okay, so my tip for studying for the OIIQ, I would say mostly do practice questions. I thought it was really helpful because it really helps reinforcing your knowledge from nursing school, what you've seen in clinical, and if you're working also, I feel like it will reinforce things you learn. And I feel like by that time you kind of know everything you're supposed to know for like the exam, to take the exam, because you've been doing this for 3 years. So you kind of have like the basic knowledge to take the exam. You just need to know how to take the exam. And I think the practice questions really help with that.
Okay, so to prepare for the OIIQ licensing exam, I studied with friends. That really helped by doing questions together. And also I watched a lot of YouTube videos. So Registered Nurse RN. And she was really helpful. She summarized the topics really nicely. And it was very easy to follow along.
I didn't know I could love you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.